All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Thursday, July 24th. In this video, we'll take a look at the action from the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with some long and short setups going into tomorrow. Jumping right into it, QQQ, very quiet day today. You can see the doji candle, very light volume, just trading above the 5-day EMA. I think did it make new highs today? Right at new highs, regardless and not doing anything wrong. Everyone continues to think that this rally is over, and we're starting to see signs that, like, hey, things are getting really risk on, which you usually see at the end of rallies. But we've had no distribution days really pile up here. We have no gap downs on the indexes or many liquid leaders. So until that happens, I think the pain trade is up. SPY closing the day basically flat, higher highs, higher lows, closed at the low of the day. So a little bit of weakness going into the close, but new all-time highs. The growth ETF IWO now does have its first unfilled gap down. We have a lower high, gap down, close on the low, right on the 5-day moving average and support gap. So far, this 20-day EMA has been holding on a closing basis this entire uptrend, and that is kind of my line in the sand. If IWO closes below the 20-day, we're going to start to see some really good short setups triggering to the downside. And until then, it's probably either chop or uptrend. ARKK down 2% today with a gap down and close under the 5-day EMA, mostly because of Tesla's earnings. They were down, I want to say like 7%. We'll go over that chart in a second. But overall, just good action, still over the 10-day moving average. Yes, we had some down volume today, but over the 10-day moving average with one of your main holdings being down 7%, not a bad look overall. And then IBIT, using this to track Bitcoin, couldn't look at a better chart. We have that base, kind of double bottom base breakout, puts in the handle, gets going, and then this is your first EMA check back into the 10-day moving average. All consolidation, no major selling here. So Bitcoin is definitely a focus of mine and some Bitcoin related stocks. Next, we can take a look at the liquid leaders today, sorting by price percent change. NVIDIA up the most, 1.74% with a gap up. New closing highs, awesome action overall. And then the rest of the leaders were slightly down today. Nothing too dangerous. Robinhood, really tight price action. Undercut yesterday's low, closed back at the 10-day moving average. So we're really seeing volatility and volume contract here. From contraction comes expansion. Which direction will for me point to the direction of the next trend from this point? Because to me, I'll say it every video, Robinhood is the liquid leader in this market cycle. And the way that this breaks this little consolidation will give us a lot of feedback. SoFi, higher highs, higher lows, close basically flat at that 5-day moving average. Great shakeout of the, I guess, 10-day, but shakeout of the support gap and $20 earlier in the week, and then to reclaim those areas. Coinbase, a little bit weaker, but that's Bitcoin pulling sideways. To me, fine action. Little resistance gap confirmed today with the open on the high, close kind of mid-range at the 10-day moving average. If we have morning weakness into that support gap is a buy spot for me, and then we'll see how we can react there. Roblox also has a resistance gap down and a very slight gap down at the highs. We saw volatility pick up and the move up accelerate, which usually invites more volatility to the downside as well. So for me, this is kind of hands-off position until we see some more like higher highs, higher lows, and then some tightening there. I don't love trading stocks on strength when they have two gap downs and they've already made a massive move. So this is more of one that I would look for a pullback kind of shakeout to buy. GEV, power stocks, energy stocks have been like the theme over the last couple of weeks. GEV really ignited it yesterday with earnings up 14.7%. Today, trading right at those highs. I should actually put a HVC at that level. Doing nothing wrong after yesterday's 14% day. Low volume, tightening day above the 5-day moving average. Exactly what you want to see. Royal Caribbean, lower highs, lower lows, closes into that support gap a little bit. Still at that 5-day moving average, only down 1%. FUTU, the leader in China, along with TME, continues to act really well. Very low volume on today's consolidation day. That's exactly what you want to see out of leading stocks when they're above the 5 day moving average. They can have red days, they could have pullbacks, but if they pull back into the 5 day and stay above that on a closing basis on low volume, no reason to touch that stock. I'm just going to keep it working. And then Rocket Lab, a little bit of weakness today, but still closed at the 5 day moving average after a great shakeout of the 10 day and the support gap, basically to the penny there. That's why we draw those support gaps. Rallied up, and now we're just consolidating here. Awesome action overall. Next, we could jump into the industry ETFs, and really the theme today was energy. NLR, nuclear theme, up another 2.3%, closing at highs. Stocks within that theme, SMR, whoops, SMR, new highs. OKLO, new highs. What was the other one? Forget the other one. LEU, I think. Yeah, LEU right at new highs. Um, SEI had a gap up after earnings and closed well. BE, Bloom Energy, had some news announcement, some partnership. I forget which company it was with. Obviously, I have to clean up this chart, but this is a stock that made a massive move from 9 to 27 on the highest volume ever. Got weak with the market and then has been in a strong uptrend since. And now this news, like I don't want to fight this type of price action. We had a quality base here that we're breaking out of on volume, on news. It's in the leading theme. Definitely a stock to keep on your radar. So that is NLR and energy themes. XLE also some strength. Looks like it's bouncing off the 50 day moving average well. Semiconductors led by NVDA, still at the 5 and the 10 day moving average after that 20-day EMA test. Software at new highs, trading tight. That's IGV. CIBR, cybersecurity, I think is a focus here for some rotation. We tested the 50 day moving average, bounced. Now we're putting in a higher low and really tight action. We'll see which direction that breaks to. STAN, the solar ETF one that we've been watching, just another low volume, tight day above the 5 day moving average after a breakout. So overall, great action there. And then I did want to touch on KWEB, China Internet ETF, another just pull back to the 5 day moving average. A little bit heavier volume than I would like, but overall, this is a big potential base breakout, climbing up to the previous highs. So we'll let it continue to work. And then ITB, Home Builders ETF, another kind of reversal day down on volume. Still above the 5 day moving average. We'll see if this is just a higher low in this base structure. Now that we've got through the market recap, I do want to jump over to the NAAIM survey. This is the exposure levels for active investors. And if you've followed these recaps before, you know I kind of hammer this home. Typically, the three things that I look for before I get really nervous about an uptrend is, are the liquid leaders gapping down? It's got a couple with Roblox, with Coinbase, only two. Are the indexes gapping down? IWO has a gap down, so that's like one minor thing to be worried about. But QQQ's at high, SPY at highs. For me, that passes the checklist. And then NAAIM exposure levels. Once you get over 95%, that's when you see a lot of volatility in the market, and not just like good volatility to the upside, but a lot of pivot failures, a lot of taking of profits. It can go higher than 95%. I think it maxed out at like 118 in, I want to say 2018. But it can go higher than 100. I've just noticed once it hits over 95%, my breakout buys, the win rate on that gets a lot lower. There's a lot of false breakouts or gap downs that actually accelerate to the downside versus get bought up on a shakeout. And for another week, we actually declined. So we're watching the indexes rise. We're watching the liquid leaders rise. We're watching energy stocks now get the rotation. And people continue not to believe in this rally. There's still 20% of money for active investors on the sidelines. That that's the type of environment, that's the type of recipe that keeps the party going and pushes us more into risk on, really speculative names for a potential blow off top move in the market before we have to really clear the deck and reset. So to me, I think this market is primed for a big move. Like I said yesterday, I had a lot of long setups on my watch list, a lot of short setups too. And the only thing that's making me concerned at all is this is how I felt in February of this year after we had the quantum names go ballistic, 10,000% higher. All the speculative names got going in December. And then after those started to pull back, and the liquid leaders pulled back and got really tight, everyone was really excited because we saw how those speculative names could make hundreds of percent moves. Now the best names in the market are pulling back and tightening up. So at that point, everyone was super bullish. We had pivot breakouts, but admitted very quickly pivot failures, gap downs, and then you saw what happened in March and April where we saw aggressive sell-offs. So the market is set to continue higher. I think there's still reason to be bullish, and I'm probably going to play a lot of these long setups, but I'm going to be pretty locked in on if we see a lot of these pivots break out and then immediately reverse, I'm going to be immediately switching defensive because I saw that action and how this market cycle set up in December and January and February, and I don't want to be left trying to buy more breakouts, more breakouts, more breakouts as things are pulling back. But we've got the setups, we got the exposure levels to watch for, we got the leaders acting well. So dance while the party is still going. Two long setups. First is IONQ. We've got two quantum names on here. IONQ had that shakeout on Tuesday of the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average. Inside day yesterday, followed through to the upside today, and now we have kind of a nice pivot at 44.50 as a potential buy. At this point, I really want to buy on strength and get it going. If it, like I said earlier, if it goes and then immediately reverses, I'm cutting it right away. So basically using like a 1 or 2% stop on these entries, and we'll see if we can get some performance boosters later in the cycle. SNOW acting really well, pulling back and kind of undercutting, then uppercutting the key moving averages, the 5, the 10, the 20, all lining up. We've got a support gap below. If we see a quick shakeout in the morning, that's a spot that I'd be more comfortable trying. But then through today's high would be the buy on strength versus the support gap below is your stop. SEZL, this was on the watch list yesterday. We had a pretty sharp sell off after a monster run, rallied back up to the 20, then put in a lower low after that lower high, shook out the 50-day moving average and two support gaps. Since then, we've rallied up a little bit. Similar to Snowflake, quick morning weakness to the 50-day moving average and support gap. If that gets reclaimed, then that's your buy point. The low of the shakeout would be your stop. Or on strength through today's high, then the stop would be either the low of the day or the 50-day. I would probably do the low of the day. RBRK, this was one of the first names to like really get going after the market bottomed, and it made 100% move off the low. And I think everyone's forgotten about this name because it's just been pulling back and putting in this handle, which like is fair. It has not been ready to run yet. We've got three gap downs. But what I like here is we undercut the 50-day moving average. We rallied back up into that area. We pull back, put in a higher low, and we get nice and tight right at that area. Looking for a breakthrough 86, the 10-day moving average, and today's high as a potential entry. This is kind of like HIMS earlier this week, or I guess yesterday, where I haven't updated this chart, um, where we had this gap down, right? Ugly action. Everyone forgot about this name because there were better names out in the market. Then we rallied into that 50-day moving average, put in a higher low after this shakeout. Like after this action on the 21st, this stock should have fall apart. But the next day, we had the small gap up. Then we undercut the lows, the last two lows of the pullback, and immediately rallied. And after that happened, I should have been locked in on this name. I completely missed it. I had it on my watch list and just didn't pull the trigger right at the open. But this was the type of setup where it's completely forgotten, had shown strength before, higher low against the 50-day moving average, pivot 2 days high, and then it just went and went 17%, 16%. Actually looks really good for a potential move higher tomorrow as well. I didn't put it on the watch list, but um, using that as kind of a comparison to RBRK, not exactly the same. Obviously, they're different companies, they're in different sectors, but psychologically, that's how this gets set up to make a larger move. MP, this is probably my favorite setup on the watch list tomorrow, along with Robinhood. Really tight action over the 5 day moving average. Volume is drying up. We've got a clear area to manage risk against with either today's low, yesterday's low, the 5 day moving average. It's in a theme that has been working, metal and mining, and you see a move from 20 to 60, and instead of rolling over, it's getting super tight while volume dries up. That's how you get very explosive moves. It is a position that I'm in on the undercut and rally, the 5 day on Tuesday, looking to add through it through today's high. CrowdStrike, we talked about CIBR, the cybersecurity ETF. It looked like it was at a good do or die spot. CRWV along with ZS both look very similar, where we lost the 50-day moving average. People have taken this off their radar because it's been showing relative weakness. But overall, it's just kind of coming back and retesting the breakout zone, and you have this support gap here. So I'm looking for a quick shake of that area. Basically, yesterday was the buy point on this. We've got an inside candle today, so just managing risk against yesterday's low is a good spot. It does trade kind of funky. It's not my favorite stock to trade. You can see it's kind of wicky overall, but I think the theme is in a do or die spot. I think the stock's in a do or die spot, so you can manage risk really tight at those areas. Robinhood, I think it's the liquid leader of the market. We had that shakeout today and then closed at the 5 day or the 10-day moving average. Just looking for a breakthrough today's high to size this up for hopefully a blow off top move going into earnings. RGTI, the other quantum name, massive, massive move. I love this IPO chart, by the way. Like, could not look cleaner after multiple hundreds of percent moves from 80 cents up to $20. Instead of breaking down, this has just gone sideways. Kind of reminds me of AMR, kind of reminds me of SMCI and ASTS recently. Big, big move, gap down to break that initial move, sideways action, and then putting in higher lows. This really looks like SMCI's chart. So the mistake I made on that was I sold partials of it on that first pullback. That was a little sharp to my liking. I didn't do that this time. Now I'm looking to add through today's high. And then that add piece, I would use a stop probably at the 10-day moving average. IREN, this is a crypto type name from 5 to 19. Had that false breakout on Monday, squatted, shakeout on Tuesday to the 10-day, quality, tightening action yesterday, a little bit of weakness today on volume. So it's not an A plus setup to me. IREN, HUT, honestly, just IBIT or BITX just for Bitcoin exposure is probably a little bit better, but this has explosive power. So we'll see if this can gap up and then go through $19 and then just managing the risk at the low of the day. SREV, this is my favorite like speculative setup right now. We had a shake under the 50-day moving average and the support gap. Then we gap down. So two chances for bears to completely wipe this stock out. And they didn't. They immediately bought it back up. We got nice and tight today. So we've got a clear area to buy against and a clear area to manage risk against. Then we roll the dice. That's trading. There's no absolutes. Just because the setup's there doesn't mean it works, but we've got a nice, tight, logical place to manage risk against. Next, we'll jump to the short setups. I think first one I talk about, APP, I think it could be a long setup too. It's been a monster stock. It went from, what was it, $10 up to 510. I think it might just need more basing and more volatility overall, but we've got this gap down. Then we lost the 50-day. Now we're wedging up into the 50-day moving average. So you could argue this is just like HIMS, like HIMS, that this is a higher low into the 50-day, and then we have our pivot. Completely fine with that line of thinking. I think this stock has been kind of forgotten too. I'm kind of talking myself into a long right now, but this is going to be one of those setups that I probably won't actually play myself, but I'm using it as a test for the market. I've got alerts set, so if it breaks to the upside, I could check on if that breakout is continuing to break out and getting fed, like there's a lot of demand for the stock, or if we see the breakout through that area and then immediately fail, then we're starting to see some pivot failures and another kind of signal for risk off in the market. So overall, I think you can toss a coin on this setup, see which direction it lands, but a good one to kind of measure the market. The next two are exactly the same with CRCL. This was on a long watch list yesterday. We closed under that support gap, so I'm less keen on it to the long side. We also gapped down today. So thinking just through today's low is a potential short. If we gap up and then take out today's high, there's your long versus the low of the day as your long setup. But I don't love closing under the 20-day after you close under the support gap. And the market's been hot. This is showing some relative weakness lately. We had that big reversal on volume, two gap down since then. So I kind of think this is done. We'll just see if it breaks through today's low. TRWV also closed under two support gaps under the key moving averages now. So just think if we can like a gap up that loses the low, that's a short entry. Gap up that takes out the high, yeah, maybe it comes back into here, but now that we don't really have a gap zone to play against, for me, that's a little too risky, and I'd rather see a rally and then a higher low and then play it later on to the long side. But this is a short watch for me. ACHR, not the action that you want to see after it gets going. You had a really nice like false breakout, squat, shakeout combo, and then we ripped higher. And I was in this name thinking that it would do well, but I trimmed some at 1288 when we took out the previous day low, and then I just sold it at the end of the 21st. Close under the 5-day moving average on more volume, not ideal. Then we gap down, kind of bounced off the 50-day, had a tight day, then gap down again while the market's strong. Just looking for a break through the lows and the 50-day moving average here as the short. The 20-day moving average in today's high would be my stop. DXYZ, this has been on the short watch list since I've been doing these daily updates, and it's been like putting in lower highs, lower lows constantly. Three really tight days under the key moving averages. We're just looking for a break through those lows to accelerate the move down. RDW, similar action to ACHR. We rally up into a previous high area. This one was a resistance gap. Opened on the high with that gap up, close on the low through the 5 and the 10-day, follow through the next day through the 20-day, low volume rally back into that key moving average. Then we gap down, open on the high, close on the low at the 50-day. Just a lot of warning signs piling up for this name. Just looking for a breakthrough today's low to short. NEGG, I do have this short already on the uppercut and failure of the resistance gap here. I really like the action today because it sets up just a clear area to manage risk against. This is another setup that you could say, Nick, this is a long setup. We've got good volume profile on the way up. We're pulling back into key moving averages. Now we're getting tight. I would completely agree with you that you could take this to the long side. For me, I'm just going to have my stops at yesterday's high for my short position that I'm in already. And then if we gap down or take out today's low, I'm going to add some size to this because we have two gap downs. We've got a resistance gap that we uppercut and failed. We have a third gap down today on tight volume. So now I can manage risk really tightly, could size it up and try to play for a move lower. And if it goes through yesterday's high, I'm out of my short and I probably won't take it long, but I'm definitely not going to be betting against it. GRRR, this is another speculative name that has just not really gotten going. We had this big volume move after earnings, and then you immediately gap down and follow through to the downside. Not what you want to see after an earnings announcement. Then we put in a lower high on a really good day on volume and immediately gap down, follow through to the downside on higher volume. Not what you want to see. Then you get tight on the key moving averages and then break to the downside with a wedge drop. Not what you want to see. You follow through day two, not good action. Two low volume rallies into the 5-day, followed by today's move through yesterday's low. That was like the short at $18 was the correct place to short. I'll just be using probably today's low as an entry. if we gap up or if we like uppercut the 5 day moving average, yesterday's high, and then lose that 18 spot, that'll be a spot to short as well. ARQQ putting in this big cup. Um, we have made new rally highs here, but we keep wicking and then closing low, wick, close low at this resistance gap. Then we followed through to the 20-day, bounced there, got nice and tight. This is another setup that if we gap up and take out the high, you could probably play this to the upside for like a performance booster. For me, I'm just looking for a breakthrough today's low and getting like a kind of a cheat entry on this short as it rolls over, but not like an A plus name to me. If I take it, it's going to be with smaller size. NEGG is really what I'm focused on the short side. LAES, another speculative name that has some warning signs piling up. Gap down after a new high, never a good sign. Uppercut the previous resistance area and fail. Then we follow through to the downside, not good. Rally up into the resistance gap. Sellers are still there. We lose the 50-day moving average, get tight on the key moving averages here at the 5 day. Little like flag, whatever you want to call it, low volume. So we've got a good tight area to manage risk against. Through the low is the short. The last two highs are the stop on this one. And then BMNR, this was one of those stocks in the do or die spot as well. Ended up breaking to the upside and had a ton of volume here, but then we closed low in the range, only up 4% on the day. I think it was up like 12 or 13% at one point. So now we just have another day where retail comes in, tries to bid it up, and whoever's been selling this entire time, who got trapped at $130, continues to sell. And we're still seeing distribution, even though today was like a positive day. I think through today's low is another spot to short and really try to unwind this one. So that's going to be the daily market recap for Thursday, July 24th. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I do these daily recaps Monday through Thursday, and then nothing on Friday, and then do a longer weekly recap and preparation video that's out either on Saturday or Sunday. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys in that video.